Guten Morgen, and welcome to the Pura Vida podcast, where we dive deep into the science of hormones and how these fascinating, tiny messengers affect all aspects of health and life, and most importantly, how you can take charge of your own hormonal balance.
Welcome to the Pura Vida podcast. My name is Dr. Gabriel Salgo, and I'm your...
I would like to do a simple yet very powerful self-experiment. You can do it wherever you are. It's called acupressure or reflexology, and we will be focusing on a specific point known as yin tongue or the third eye. To find the yin tongue point, place your index or middle finger. I'm using my index finger in the video for obvious reasons. Now place it in the center of your forehead, right between your eyebrows. This spot has been used in TCM Ayurveda for thousands of years to promote relaxation and mental clarity. And today we know from medical studies that it reduces cortisol surge and increases the endorphin production. So now that you have found it, please apply gentle pressure to the yin tongue point. Begin to massage this area with small circular motions, just slight pressure. You feel the pressure, that's important. And then while massaging, take deep breaths through your nose. Hold the breath for a few seconds and then exhale slowly through your mouth. And while you keep doing this, I will explain what is happening in your body, how this is actually hormone related. So watch your deep breaths, hold it for a few seconds and then exhale through your mouth. And I will let you know when to stop. So the gentle pressure that you apply to the yin tongue point stimulates the trigeminal nerve, which can modulate pain signals, and it also improves the blood circulation in your brain. So the trigeminal nerve is also connected to the brainstem. And through this, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system and helps with relaxation and reduce stress. This leads to a decrease in the stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, making you feel calmer and more centered. At the same time, it promotes the release of endorphins, your body's natural feel-good and well-being hormones. Now you can stop the massage, take one more deep nasal breath, hold it, and please exhale deeply. Thank you very much. I find it very fascinating how such a small action can have a big impact on your hormonal balance. We will explore how hormones work, how they influence us, how they interact, and where the command centers and production sites are. I will also share some hopefully interesting stories from the history of hormone research and give you a peek into the exciting future of hormone therapy and diagnostics. Now, one of the key goals with the Pura Vida podcast, which took really a long time to prepare and do, and I'm really happy that we are doing this now, is to combine the knowledge from naturopathic, traditional medicine techniques with the newest scientific research from around the world and transfer these in an understandable, interesting way, so that you are able and, most importantly, empowered to use this knowledge to improve your own health and sleep better, lose weight easier, build and maintain muscle mass even at older age. Also know how and when to make the proper checkups, take the right supplements and also medication, what is available. So simply to use the Pura Vida knowledge for your everyday life, for an improved well-being. So let's jump into medias res with what are hormones. Well, the official medical definition of a hormone, as described in scientific textbooks, is the following. A hormone is a chemical substance produced by a gland or a specialized cell in one part of the body, then released and circulated in the bloodstream, and it exerts regulatory effects on cells or organs in distant parts of the body. So simply put, the hormone acts as a messenger, transmitting signals from one part of the body to another. And with that, it plays a crucial role in regulating various physiological processes, including growth and brain development, fat, muscle, hair gain, and of course also loss, lust, reproduction, sleep and mood, skin quality, immune modulation, and the list goes on. Now, to fully appreciate the complexity of hormones, it is really, really essential to understand that no hormone works in isolation. So it doesn't work alone. These are not Rambo type of sole operatives. So all of the hormones are always in combination, in teams, working together. So for instance, if you consider a relationship between insulin and glucagon, two hormones produced by the pancreas, the insulin lowers the blood glucose levels by facilitating the uptake of glucose into cells, while on the other hand, glucagon raises blood glucose levels and is promoting the release from storages in the liver. So the direct interaction between insulin and glucagon maintains a healthy level of blood glucose, but of course there are much more hormones included in this fine-tuning of the process. And blood glucose levels are not just affected by eating. I don't know if you knew that after a workout, even if you haven't eaten for 10 hours, but started your day with a little bit of exercise, your blood sugar levels are rising. And it can rise as high as if you just had eaten an ice cream. So this phenomenon occurs because exercise stimulates the release of glucagon, as we just mentioned, and other hormones also like adrenaline and cortisol. And this teamwork signals the liver to break down glycogen into glucose and release it into the bloodstream to provide you with a quick source of energy for the muscles. Additionally, exercise increases the sensitivity of insulin receptors in the muscle cells. These receptors is something that we will speak later. And this is also the reason why exercise is one of the most powerful medications for people with insulin receptor resistance and type 2 diabetes. So I think that the in-depth knowledge about the harmony of metabolically active hormones can immensely help to optimize long-term cellular function, and by that reducing risks for cancer and dementia like Alzheimer's, which is nowadays also referred to as diabetes type 3. Another fascinating example for hormone regulation is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, which controls the stress hormones. So here, two levels of regulations are in the brain, with the hypothalamus sitting pretty much in the middle of the whole brain with the size of a bigger almond, and just below it, the pituitary gland. And these two, we will speak a lot about it later, because they are involved in a lot of the hormones' regulatory functions. So the pituitary gland sits below the hypothalamus, and it has like the size of a smaller peanut. And the hormone-producing gland, the adrenal gland, is on top of our kidneys with the shape of a fortune cookie. So not very close to each other. But the effect is very fast, as we know from stressful situations. When we encounter them, the hypothalamus releases a so-called corticotropin-releasing hormone. And as soon as you are hearing in the future releasing hormone, you can be very sure that the hypothalamus is involved. And this releasing hormone, corticotropin-releasing hormone, signals the pituitary gland to secrete the adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. Now, this actually you can not necessarily, you don't need to remember it unless you have an examination in the next few weeks or months. So these two are then practically the signaling which is released into the bloodstream, the ACTH, and this is then what prompts the adrenal gland, you remember above your kidney, to produce cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, aldosterone, out of which the cortisol is regarded as the body's primary stress hormone. But only the orchestration of them all is making sure that that increased energy is ready for the body, so that your cardiovascular system is boosted and your heart starts to pump more blood to your brain and muscles and vital organs, and actually the blood flow to less important systems in the body for that time period, like the digestive system, is restricted. So throughout our evolution, spanning tens of thousands of years, the APH axis developed to help our ancestors cope with acute, immediate physical stressors like predators, natural disasters, or simply jealous neighbors. So all these situations actually demanded, as I said, very, very immediate, short-term responses to life-threatening situations. And the surge of the adrenal stress hormones provided a crucial advantage to survive. And once the threat passed, hopefully very, very short after it increased, the hormone levels returned to normal and allowing the body to recover, presuming, of course, the individual survived. Now, this changed in the last maybe 200 years, as the nature of stress and modern stressors are not immediate and life-threatening, but very often chronic and psychological, mostly including work pressure, financial worries, or your relationship. And this leads to a prolonged activation of the APJ axis, what didn't happen in these tens of thousands of years, and resulting now in a sustained high levels of cortisol, adrenaline, and all the other hormones in this cascade, which, on the other hand, now today can lead to various health issues, including anxiety, depression, digestive problems, heart disease, skin issues, and many, many more. So understanding the difference between ancient and modern stress helps us to understand the role of the APJ axis in our overall health today. And while this system evolved to protect us, its chronic activation can be detrimental to our health. This highlights how important stress management, such as mindfulness, exercise, adequate sleep, it's crucial to maintain hormonal balance for our overall well-being, health, and longevity. The sensitivity of our hormonal system is also crucial for maintaining the homeostasis. Often we are thinking of balance in the body the same way as we are thinking of a balanced scale, where we are afraid to touch it or even breathe close to it, so it does not move. In our body and in regards of health, the homeostasis, the balanced, ideal function, is always a dynamic process. There are millions and millions of processes, ideally coordinated and synchronized, going on in every second of our lives. And if something goes wrong, we have countermeasures and systems that immediately act to restore the balance. For example, our immune system, or as said, our hormones. But of course, these dynamics and complexity makes the system also susceptible to disruptions. And it would be interesting now to have your first thoughts on what you think this disruption to the balance of our hormonal systems are, where toxins like alcohol, heavy metals, and other environmental poisons, which are all correct, but more in the mid to lower end of the list. So the very, very top of the list is something that is affecting 100% of us humans, and it is aging. So during our lifetime, hormonal changes mark the biggest challenges for our bodies and the biggest transformations that we are going through. The very first one is obviously puberty. So during puberty, growth hormones, sexual hormones surge and initiate the development of secondary sexual characteristics like the deeper voice, breast development, body hair, and of course growth and the changes in the brain. The setting of the female menstrual cycle in this period is a perfect example for the complexity and elegance of hormonal interactions and harmony, as it involves the coordinated interplay between the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, ovaries, uterus, and actually also the adrenal glands. So the precise timing and balance of the hormones are crucial for reproductive health. And that it works in the majority of people is very clearly visible on the development of the population numbers. So although we have certainly much more cases of fertility problems due to things like stress, older age and parents, overweight, honestly, this comes nowadays more from the father's side. And there is little sensibility, I think, with most of us to see that the father is to 50% involved in the DNA's transfer to the children. And he can prepare for conception, and with that he can largely improve the child's health. So fertility and sexual health will be a big focus for our topics in the future, as there are many, many things we can do to improve these problems with fairly easy lifestyle changes and also, of course, sometimes medications. Then the second big hormonal change is largely for the female. It's of course the menopause. Cease producing and the whole body goes haywire, just like during puberty, if not worse. So most ladies experience very troublesome symptoms, and even worse, they experience health deterioration over time. For male, the same happens, but in a much slower pace. Actually, it starts also much earlier, so we are going through a male menopause, or whatever you might call it, from our 30s, mid 30s onwards. And because it's slower and starts earlier, it's very often accepted just plainly as, oh yeah, that's aging. Although again, it can be delayed with the right tools. So if we see it, practically all our hormonal glands starts shifting and slowing down in their function and are mainly responsible what we experience as the aging process. So it's no wonder that the original pioneers of anti-aging, actually an expression that I very much dislike, as nowadays it's used for every cosmetic cream that promises less wrinkles. It's called the anti-aging cream. Nevertheless, the fathers of the real regenerative or anti-aging movement were endocrine specialists. So my mentor, Dr. Thomas Klosterhalfen, the founder of the German Society for Anti-Aging Medicine and really a true trailblazer in preventive and regenerative medicine, saw very early that if we substitute hormone levels in perimenopausal female and middle-aged men to the levels of a healthy 30 to 40-year-old from the same peer group, we can restore many physiological functions and delay the aging process. So today, 30 years later, thanks to his and other pioneers' work, we have much more sophisticated diagnostic and therapeutic tools at hand to help our patients. It is also, I think, very interesting to know that the human body produces over 50 different hormones that we know of at the moment, and we are continuously discovering new hormones or biochemical substances that act as hormones. And this will be very, very exciting to share these with you, because that's something that is not in the mainstream press or social media, but has so many positive effects on health and aging. And again, as many of us are maybe familiar with insulin, estrogen, and testosterone, there are many lesser known hormones that play equally important roles. If we take, for example, ghrelin, often referred to as the hunger hormone, because it signals the brain when it's time to eat, or the opposite, leptin, which helps regulate energy balance by inhibiting hunger. These are maybe hormones you never heard of, and we will then explain how they work and how you can influence them to your advantage. The same if you consider hormones like melatonin, which regulates the sleep-wake cycle, or oxytocin, known for its role in social bonding, childbirth, and mostly described as the love hormone. Most of our hormones are produced in glands, clearly defined organs which develop already in the womb. There is a newly researched production site for hormones that develops only after our birth and is also shifting and changing throughout our lives, and on which we have an immense influence. And it's called the gut microbiome. Now that the microbiome exists is already nothing that was known for ancient times. And only in the 1960s it was hinted that the microbiome is producing biochemicals. And only in the last 20 years we started to understand, and only rudimentary, how it works. So the trillions of microorganisms which are residing in our intestine produce a variety of bioactive compounds, including hormones. Now, one of the most well-known ones that maybe you even heard of is serotonin. And while serotonin is mostly associated with mood regulations in the brain, approximately 90% of the body's serotonin is actually produced in the gut. This is why nowadays we speak of the gut-brain axis. And the serotonin is also a multifaceted neurotransmitter, which is not only involved in the psychological process, but it also has effects on your gastrointestinal function, on blood clotting, on bone density, and also on fertility, and on appetite regulation. In that maybe a little bit of an anecdote. My kids are always coming and they heard it somewhere that the chocolate through serotonin is improving mood. Although there is a tiny bit of truth to it, because the cacao beans contain tryptophan, an amino acid which is a precursor to serotonin. And this then, especially in dark chocolate, where there's more of the cacao bean in the chocolate, affects the serotonin production. The real levels of serotonin produced by or delivered by the chocolate, they are extremely low, and for sure not the reasons that we feel happy after having chocolate. I think the feeling comes more from a combination of other biochemical substances, also very often sugar, and mostly from a psychological association, where what was formed during our personal experiences as child, because I cannot remember that I ever ate chocolate because I misbehaved. It was always a treat. It was always something that was given to you when something good happened. So this conditioning is most likely the reason why we feel happy when we eat chocolate, and not the serotonin that it gives us. But whatever, as long as it makes us happy, it's welcome, of course, only in moderations. So I think in addition to serotonin, the gut microbiome produces also very interesting and more and more known substances that are influencing our health. One of them are short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, acetate, and propionate, which have hormone-like effects on the metabolism and immune system. And these short-chain fatty acids are also influencing the production and release of a specific hormone in the gut that at the moment is in everybody's mind, or at least in everybody's newspaper. They are called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1 analogs, where the analogs only stands for that it looks like a GLP-1, but is synthetically made. And maybe you heard not the GLP-1, but Ozempic, Wegovy, and several other products from different companies. And it has become the most popular weight loss drug available today. Because these drugs help to reduce hunger, increase satiety, and improve the glycemic control, it makes them very active tools for weight management and in type 2 diabetic patients. Now, we will do a one or two in-depth shows with several heavyweights in medicine who have researched GLP-1 for the last decade and know so much about it and can give us a better idea than what newspapers say about the risks, about the maybe also many more usages of the GLP-1 analogs in the future. And when I mentioned just now that Ozempic and the other GLP analogs are synthetic, that brings up another very sensitive area in medical discussions. Are synthetic or bioidentical hormones better for hormone replacement therapy? So for that, maybe we should know that hormone replacement therapy is any treatment that is used to relieve symptoms of hormonal imbalance, such for those people with diabetes 1 or during menopause or with conditions like hypothyroidism. And these are all hormone replacement therapies, and these are all can be done with two groups, the synthetic and the bioidentical hormones. And there might be a misunderstanding when people think of bioidentical hormones by thinking, oh, bio sounds like if they grow on trees and then we just harvest them and give it to patients. Unfortunately, that's absolutely not the case. So let's explain maybe first what synthetic hormones are. These are created artificially in laboratories and are not completely identical to the hormones produced in our body. Now you are asking, if they're not identical, how can they have the same effect? So maybe I explain it with the key lock analogy, where the keys are the hormones, and they open in the door lock, which are then the receptors. So when your key, for example, is silver and round-ended and has a funny keychain, these synthetic hormones that are produced in the lab have, for example, a white color, have a square ending, and have no keychain at all. But they have the same blade with the same cuts as your key, and this is why it can open the target lock. And with that, it achieves the main purpose by opening the door and initiating the intended action. Now, bioidentical hormones, on the other hand, are practically unnaturally produced by plants or by animals, and they look, when we put it into pills, the same. So they have the same color, they have the same keychain, but are also adjusted in laboratories. So they're modified, they're purified, so that they look identical to human hormones. But all this has been done in the lab. So both of the hormones are coming out of laboratories. I personally use both because a lot of patients have also mindset preferences, and also because both open the door, but they have, with their keychain and color, maybe also some slightly different effects on certain people. So for me, it's not important if they're bioidentical or synthetical. As always in medicine, I find that we have to follow up properly and not only test the blood levels. So is a synthetic elevating your blood levels of the hormones? Okay, you are in a normal range. But if you feel bad, then we have to adjust. And we don't just have to adjust the amount of the hormone, but we might have to adjust the form. So then we're switching, for example, from synthetic to a bioidentical or the other way around. So there is no 100% rule which one is better. We have to follow up a patient properly and then adjust according to blood levels and well-being. So both of them have to be parallel in a very, very good range. I think what I also mentioned before, it's very important to discuss that it's not only the hormones that are responsible for the effect, but also on the other side, the receptors. So even if we have the keys, the locks have to be also there. As all hormones exert their effects by binding to specific receptors on the surface or inside the target cell, again, just as described with the key lock analogy. So these receptors are the locks that recognize and bind the hormones with very high specificity, triggering then the cascade of biochemical events that leads to the hormone's intended action. So we have unfortunately conditions where we produce or where we even substitute enough keys, hormones like insulin. I think that's one of the best examples for that because most people know diabetes. So, but the receptors are destroyed or not working anymore. So in these cases, we need medication or other tools to either produce more receptors or to repair them, make them more sensible for the key, so the door can be opened again. And again, the insulin therapy in some of the diabetes 2 patients is a very good example because many of these diabetic 2 patients are producing more than enough insulin already. Their pancreas is on high capacity and puts out as much as possible they can produce. And then we are additionally injecting insulin, and these diabetics are not getting better because the receptors, the locks, are faulty. It's called insulin receptor insufficiency or insulin resistance. So instead of trying to make the receptors more sensible, unfortunately, more insulin is given. In an ideal case, these people are put on exercise and on a restrictive low carbohydrate diet, and you achieve much, much better results than with the medication. Of course, this solution requires also much more time investment from both patients and doctors, and this is then the bottleneck, where even in Europe or in the US, in first world countries, there is no ratio of 1-to-1 on doctors and patients. So the time that we can spend with patients is limited. And this is why we are trying now on this fantastic way with podcasts and social media to increase awareness and knowledge about these things, that when you are going to your doctor, you are enabled to put the right questions into place. Now, if you imagine that from the first discovery of insulin, only 100 years ago by Dr. Frederick Banting and Dr. Charles Best, or since the discovery in the 1940s of cortisol, 100 million of lives were saved through the development of hormonal medicine. Until today, with the introduction of GLP-1 analogs, and there is a much lesser discussed but immensely progressing field of cellular therapies with stem cells and activated nanovesicles. We came a long way in this very short amount of time, especially if you consider that patients with diabetes type 1 through thousands of years simply had no long survival chance. And nowadays they can lead an almost normal life with normal life expectancy. And I think also the advancements in diagnostic and therapeutic tools will now undoubtedly receive a significant boost with the emergence of AI-based technologies. Because what might have taken decades of research will now be achievable in just a few years. Consider the capability of an AI algorithm to analyze vast amounts of data, identify patterns and predict outcomes. With this capacity, it can optimize treatments, medication, diagnostic tools, with ultimately enhancing personalized healthcare for the masses at a fraction of today's cost. And on the therapeutic side, the research, as I mentioned, and the use of stem cell therapy holds a potential to regenerate damaged endocrine tissues and restoring normal hormone production, so that possibly in near future we don't need to use neither synthetic nor bioidentical drugs anymore. As you see, I'm getting quite excited about the amazing possibilities in the future, but actually also about what is already possible. I hope that I could transfer a bit of this excitement to you, and you tune in for our future podcasts where we will discuss specific hormones, their functions, and how you can influence them, how you can optimize them. Of course, wisely, to improve and prolong your health and life. Thank you very much for listening, and remember, life is good.
Legal disclaimer. This podcast and website reflect the opinions of Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo and his guests. The content provided here is not intended as medical advice and is solely for informational purposes. Given the unique nature of individuals, it is advisable to consult a healthcare professional for any medical concerns. The views expressed herein are our own and do not necessarily reflect those of our respective workplaces. While we strive for accuracy in the information shared, we welcome feedback and corrections. Privacy is paramount to us, and any references to individuals, locations, or scenarios have been altered to safeguard patient confidentiality. This podcast and website should not be construed in a legal capacity, including establishing a standard of care or as the basis for expert witness testimony. We do not guarantee the accuracy of statements or opinions expressed herein. Engagement with our content, whether through listening, reading, emailing, or social media interaction, does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. Should any errors be identified in our content, please contact us through the provided channels. Ownership of this podcast belongs to Pura Vida Healthline SDN BHD. Our content may include affiliate links, through which we earn a commission on sales made through those links. As a participant in the Amazon affiliate program, we may earn from qualifying purchases made through our links. Disclosures. Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo is the co-founder of Pura Vida Healthline SDN BHD. Dr. Gabriel Peter Salgo is a scientific advisor, board member, and/or investor to Mulligan H. Jadakind Ltd., Eichsen Research, and receives compensation from these companies.